Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 8th of May 2024, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting through the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the media brief that was given by the dgispr, Major General Ahmed Sharif Chaudhry, about different issues, whether it concerns Pakistan's politics or Pakistan's security apparatus as well, wherein he talked about one of the issues that we will be highlighting in our first segment, and that is the TTP, the involvement of the terrorist elements from the Afghan border and intruding into Pakistani territories and then destabilizing Pakistan, not since now but since quite some time. And of course there's irrefutable evidence of that, as has been highlighted by the dgispr. We'll be highlighting different aspects of this terrorism that has been infiltrating from the Afghan soil into Pakistan, despite various attempts by Pakistan to request Afghanistan to stop the involvement of such terrorist outfits from the Afghan soil. This is going to be our first story. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the day 215 of the Israel-Palestine war, this conflict, this genocide, this ethnic cleansing, this war against humanity, crimes against humanity that have been going on since the 7th of October last year. Now, Israel has continued to bomb Rafah and the rest of the Gaza Strip. Palestinians remain trapped following the seizure of the vital Rafah crossing on the border with Egypt. There has been widespread condemnation of this, but unfortunately, no proper tangible action has been taken, although many countries, many organizations, whether it be the United Nations or Jordan or other countries, have been highlighting this and have been saying that this does not need to go any further, and any ground invasion of Rafah is going to have serious consequences, not only for Palestine but also beyond Palestine. Now, we don't know what's going to happen, but nevertheless, the signs are quite out there. This is what we're going to discuss in our second story. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to discuss Vladimir Putin, who's been sworn in for a 5th term as a president of Russia. This was a ceremony that was boycotted by many Western countries, including the United States, because of the war in Ukraine. Putin says he wanted to bow before the Russian soldiers and declared in his inauguration speech that his landslide re-election in March was proof that the country was united and on the right track. Finally, we're going to talk about April, the month of April, that has been declared as the hottest April on record. It has extended an 11th month streak in which every month has set a temperature record. This has been said by the European Union's Climate Change Monitoring Service. And of course, it all is related directly or indirectly to climate change, to the carbon emissions and whatnot. I don't know whether the necessary action will be taken, but of course everybody knows what's behind it and what are the reasons of this increase in temperatures. Let's begin with our first segment, our first story, and that concerns Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, their usage of Afghan soil and infiltrating into Pakistani territories and destabilizing Pakistan through various tactics and through the different attempts and through the different attacks that it has been doing, whether it be in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or in Balochistan. We've been joined by Brigadier retired Waqar Hassan Khan. He's a senior analyst. Brigadier Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. Brigadier Sahab, I'd like to kind of concentrate on the briefing given by the dgispr, Major General Ahmed Sharif. He talks about the tensions with Afghanistan. He talks about the infiltration of terrorists from the Afghan soil into Pakistan, but he also highlights the killing of the 5 Chinese engineers in Bisham of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa on the 26th of March. He said that planning was done in Afghanistan. He said that the suicide bombing also connects to Afghanistan, and that terrorists and their facilitators are being controlled from Afghanistan. And the bomber was also an Afghan national. Why, in your point of view, sir, because we've already had this discussion, but I'd like to really understand as a Pakistani, why is Afghanistan pursuing a policy to destabilize our country?
Thank you very much. I think the first thing is that things have now gone beyond just informing Afghanistan or informing the people. Now Pakistan's political military leadership is now into action. And of course, when the presser was held after, I think, a large gap, So it was important to highlight security aspects on eastern and western borders, and situation about Afghanistan definitely was part of the agenda of the press. Now, one is that it is now beyond just informing or requesting Afghanistan. So Pakistan political military leadership is into action. That means internally and externally, wherever we feel that there is a threat, and I think it was also very clearly mentioned by dgispr that Pakistan and Pakistan military will go to utmost limit to basically strike these terrorist outfits in case there is threat to Pakistan. So that's, I think, the underlining feature. The other is regarding, I think, a significant thing was reiteration and basically informing the public about attack on the Chinese, because Chinese are also doing heavy investment in Afghanistan. If you look at Haji Cake, if you look at, even I think some prospects of lithium mining, and they were trying to also open, a corridor through basically Waqar corridor, basically to connect it with the CPAC. But reports are now that it has been slowed down, and since China is doing investment in both countries, and in case Taliban are striking Chinese interests in Pakistan, so technically they are harming Chinese interests, irrespective of whether it's happening in Afghanistan or and Pakistan intelligence have I think solid proofs. As it was mentioned, the vehicle was, the VBIED was prepared in Afghanistan, was then smuggled through Pakistan and through the cell, then placed, and the target was awaited, and then it was. So it means it was a coordinated effort. The other is, of course, regionally attack in Russia, although it was not mentioned by dgispr, but I would like to just connect it. The terrorist attack in Moscow on a concert, again originated from Afghanistan, but by IS. So it means that the international hub of terrorism again is re-emerging in Kabul, and Afghanistan has to now look into the sitting government in Afghanistan or the interim government. I think reiterating the information about attack on Chinese was important. One, of course, to highlight to the public that Pakistan is aware of that, and the other is to basically communicate it both to China and Afghan interim government. This is what is happening. So I think very, very significant. And if you look at the pressure which is coming on Afghanistan in international arena, it's rising because of these acts. Already, as we discussed last time in Moscow format, I think they were shunned by the all the regional countries, Mr. Muttaqi Saab, to stop and shut these terrorist outfits and factories.
All right. Kindly stay online with us. We've also been joined by Salman Javed. He's an Afghan affairs expert right here in the studios. Salman, thank you very much to have joined us. The DGISPR's presser is very important in the context of many things, including Afghanistan and the TTP. Now, the DGISPR says in the war on terrorism, Pakistan's soldiers, workers, law enforcement agencies have been martyred in huge numbers. He said, and I quote, "Everyone knows Pakistan tried its best for peace in the region, especially in Afghanistan." Why hasn't Pakistan's role been acknowledged by Afghanistan?
We discussed it at length in your previous program as well, and
yes, we
discussed that whatever the reaction Pakistan is giving right now, it is not something which is happening in isolation, or it is not something which had happened overnight. So there is a history to it, and we should reiterate, we should hammer this history again and again to probably this will fall on some wise ears inside Afghanistan. When Salman took over in 2021, in August 2021, Pakistan was the first country or the only country which remained active over there in Afghanistan and helped not only Afghan people but also the foreigners and also the Afghan interim government as well in connecting with the outer world. When the sanctions were imposed by the Americans on Afghanistan, Pakistan was the only country which opened 5 passes for Afghanistan for the trade, and we also started working on barter trade elements as well so that they can have a breathing space. Pakistan also not only were hosting already a huge chunk of refugees over here, there was an influx of 450,000 immigrants again after the takeover of Taliban, which Pakistan accommodated.
You talk of the refugees. We've had millions of refugees, documented and undocumented as well. Even right now, we've got around 1 million undocumented Afghan refugees, even more. Why has Afghanistan forgotten all these efforts?
The only reason that I understand is that whenever you talk to them about TTP or about such outfits which are actually a menace to Pakistan and wreak havoc inside Pakistan, the only answer that comes from there is that they supported them inside Afghanistan against the Americans or against the forces which were there in Afghanistan for last 20 years, so they cannot betray them. This is exactly the same attitude which actually put Afghanistan into ruins back in 2001. when Osama bin Laden happened and 9/11 was, orchestrated by the Al-Qaeda, the world over, even Pakistan's high officials, Pakistan DGSI, they went there. Pakistan ambassador met Mullah Omar time and again and pleaded to them that they should hand over Osama bin Laden to any third country where they can, put them under, custody, and we can have fair and free trial for Osama bin Laden over there. But they did not. And that is where they are standing again right now with regards to TTP as well. So I think this is the mentality which is playing the part over there.
All right. Brigadier Sahab, what should now be Pakistan's modus operandi as far as eradicating these terror outfits from Pakistani soil, and all those who are supporting such terrorist outfits from Pakistan's soil, and of course a majority of them, as has been said, are Afghan nationals?
I think the current policy, as you I think must have noticed in last 3 months, although the policy has been in play for more than 1 year. One, it should be strongly followed by both political military leadership and the political leaderships in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan, because that's where the fight is mainly taking place. The underlining features of the policy are: number one, no tolerance for terrorism. It's a red line, and terrorism has to be crushed, inshallah, by the end of 2024. And in any case, in any attempt across the border will be maybe met by a military response. So this has already been, I think, unprecedented action by Pakistan has displayed, actually conveyed to all three countries, India in swift retort, then unfortunate incident with Iran, but then we had to strike back, and then we did it in Afghanistan. So this a new Pakistan and a new policy as far as Pakistan security is concerned. Then, of course, winning hearts and minds and development of the area, especially in Balochistan and erstwhile districts or settled district now of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And then, of course, regional and international effort, which I think is now bearing fruit. At times, people undermine it. You look at the regional pressure being built by Iran, by Pakistan, China, Russia, and Central Asian republics. And now, of course, since the terrorism is re-emerging, there's definite thought in European Union and North America that this has to be stopped. So there's a lot of pressure. Now, the main thing is that Pakistan has to bifurcate between the Afghan interim government and the people of Afghanistan, because when it comes to people, then there is where I think we have to maintain, I would say, the system of relief and concessions. Like Afghan transit trade, probably we cannot stop it because it affects. Then grain supply, the wheat season now coming, and you'll have huge wheat going to Pakistan, Afghanistan. Then, of course, 300,000 Afghans cross into Pakistan every month for different reasons, for health, for education, for businesses. And then, of course, we understand that in case of crisis like COVID, Pakistan had to open their doors. And there's a lot of dependency of Afghanistan on Pakistan. So these, I think, both have to go side by side. But as I understand, there are elements within interim government which definitely would be advising the leadership that this policy of sponsoring terrorism and trying to draw concessions from Pakistan or blackmail will not work. They probably thought that if they could defeat the superpower, they could probably also pressurize Pakistan to get relief zones. So I think that is done and dusted. And now we are moving into a new realm. I am very hopeful that all these kinds of measures and aggressive policy against terrorism would bear fruit by the end of 2024.
All right. Now, my next question is addressed to the both of you, and I'll begin with you, Brigadier Saab. What does Afghanistan gain from all this instability in our country? I mean, I'd like to just refer to the first media brief that was given by the dgispr in the end of April. He gave specifics. He said, in KP, 192 people have been martyred, 330 injured. Balochistan, 80 martyred, 170 injured. 14 martyred, 3 injured in Punjab. 7 people martyred, 18 injured in Sindh. 8,269 intelligence-based operations in this year. 100,525 terrorists arrested or killed this year. 3,531 operations just in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in which 159 terrorists arrested, 119 conducted in Punjab, 519 conducted in Sindh. I will repeat my question. What does Afghanistan gain from all of these operations or attacks in Pakistan?
I think one is that Afghanistan for last, I would say, 4 decades, successive government have used as them as a lever to pressurize Pakistan or draw concessions. And this interim government is no exception. Mainly, I think they were encouraged by the thought that since they have defeated, not realizing that Pakistan also helped a lot, especially in diplomatic realm, to help Americans get out. And then they got the government. But they probably feel that if they could defeat the superpower, Pakistan was a cakewalk, which I think is misunderstood. Look at the comparison, if you look at the demography, psychosocial structure, and of course the military strength, and the mere fact that Pakistan is a permanent neighbor, is not like US that will leave one day. So I think this misperception did exist in some of the quarter. Then, of course, is instigation by hostile neighbors like India. You know that I think just a few months back, an Indian delegation did visit, and there were some, I think, assurances that in case you keep the Pak-1 border on fire, you will get some reward. So all told, I think they have tried it. I feel that policy, inshallah, is going to work, and most probably, interim government would understand. And now there are signs. Look at intelligence-based operations. The numbers of successes is now basically on the Pakistan military side. There are more successes and less terrorist attacks. So let's hope that sense prevails and Pakistan succeeds. And it's good for people of Afghanistan and Afghanistan as well.
All right, Salman, what's your take on this? What is Afghanistan's POV when it comes to all of these attacks, these operations that have been going on? I just cited the numbers and figures that were given.
I'll agree with Brigadier Saab that the first and the foremost is to take concessions from Pakistan while having a proxy which they think that they can use against Pakistan to coerce or to twist our arm.
But why coerce? This is what I want to understand.
Yeah,
why coerce or twist our arm?
It's something that Afghanistan or the Afghan Taliban, they are looking towards other stakeholders in the region to fuel their economy in some manner. So they are good at one thing, and they are good at fighting right now because they are a war machine. So they think that hosting some hostile agency over there and collaborating with them against Pakistan might bear some results, because there is a streak of Indian tycoons, business tycoons, meeting with the Afghan officials in past 1 year, and this is something which is very concerning for Pakistan as well, because if Indians are coming over there with their investment, they might be coming with some kind of a state agenda as well, which also happened in the previous region and in past as well.
Yes.
So this is something which we think that Pakistan think that Afghanistan might be gaining from out of it. The second thing is that they had an ideology of perpetuating the narrative of jihad. So this is something which they would want to feed to their foot soldiers as well, that look, we have not abandoned jihad, we are supporting our brothers in Pakistan, and we are going to push them towards Pakistan to carry out this jihad. The strategic maneuvering or the strategic gains are something else which their echelons might be looking at, but the foot soldier, they are more concerned about carrying out that facade in the name of jihad inside any territory. Now look at Iran. They have also planned to erect and install fence on the Iran-Afghanistan border because of the same infiltration being carried out by such certain elements towards Iran. So it's not only Pakistan which has been concerned; it's also Iran, which is also a great trade ally of Afghanistan right now. So I think this is a kind of fallacy in the strategic mindset of Afghan Taliban, which they think that they can carry out over here in this region and can perpetuate this conflict for their gains.
I mean, but it could be a fallacy, but it's a fallacy that is destabilizing Pakistan.
Yes.
Brigadier Saab, last question from you. When we talk of fencing, this is what Salman alluded to, fencing along the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, the 2,611 kilometers border is 98% complete. That has been confirmed end of April by the dgispr. He also said that 85% fencing has been completed along the Pak-Iran border. How important is this fencing? Will this somehow prevent the infiltration that is happening as we speak from the Afghan side?
Yeah, one Pakistan border is, I think, interesting and very complex, but definitely fencing would contribute, I would say. If you look at, we've discussed that there are villages which are divided, there are houses, like one brother living in Afghanistan, one in Pakistan. And then there's massive movement. As I mentioned, 300,000 Afghan crossing every month. And because of humanitarian reasons, or business interests or education, and Pakistan cannot stop it, because ultimately I said we have to bifurcate or split the interim government and Afghan people. And then, of course, the issue of refugees, illegal or legal, very close to 5 million, and now there's a repatriation. So it remains a very, very fluid situation on the, I would say, Pakistan border. So that's why it becomes all the more difficult to really trace each and every person, and then sneak attacks are possible. But I think fencing is going to work, and if Iran has also learned it, and mind you, Iran and Taliban had a clash because of, I think, Helmand River water and some other reasons. So they've also now trying to erect the fence. So I'm sure it's going to work, because then you'll have specific areas or passages or gates which can be monitored, and then fence. And then, of course, there's technology. Pakistan now uses high technology like drones and other surveillance systems to safeguard. But still, the challenge of this porous border remains. Definitely, is going to help.
All right. Thank you so very much, Brigadier Saab, to have joined us and given us your eminent point of view. Coming to you, Salman, my next question has two parts. Pakistan has ruled out that it does not want to undergo any talks with the TTP, and that came through a brief by the Foreign Office spokesperson some time back. How important is this as far as Pakistan's point of view, and clarity with respect to what is happening from the Afghan border is that? Secondly, the Afghan Taliban, this is a question I've posed to you last time as well, have strenuously denied that the TTP is using the Afghan soil. This urge Pakistan to look inwards to address its internal security problems. I find this statement very sarcastic and very strange at the same time. I'd like your opinion on these two.
The first thing is that there is no doubt about Pakistan's policy right now. That Pakistan is very clear about having a negotiation or sitting on the table with TTP. We have carried out these negotiations over and over again, not only in last 3 years, but also in last 23 years as well. And every time Pakistan was deceived by the TTP. On one end, TTP used to carry out these negotiations by one commander, and the other commander used to have an offshoot or to carry out attacks against Pakistan, and used to claim that we have no part in this negotiation and we are going to carry out attacks against Pakistan. So this is the kind of deceptive strategy that they have carried out time and again. This time around, they have erected another organization with the name of Tehreek-e-Jihad-e-Pakistan, and they carried out targeted attacks in Pakistan, and TTP had a Jamaat-ul-Ahrar. So these offshoots, they established this because they would want to sit with Pakistan on the table to carry out some concession, to gain some concessions, and the other end coerce Pakistan or twist the arm of Pakistan from other organization or from other end. Now, coming to the second part of your question.
The Afghan side that is saying that it is a Pakistan's internal problem, and we are not harboring any.
So there is a serious answer to this, because dgispr also said this, and there are other reports from United Nations, from the Americans, from the Russians, from the Chinese. They have all said that Afghanistan is right now the breeding ground of different organizations who are nurturing themselves over there under the shelter of Afghan Taliban. So Afghan Taliban, they cannot say this out loudly with this confidence when the world is watching over them. But there is also a response to this on a lighter note that yesterday I was I was using X, and over there I saw a tweet that someone said that if Noor Ali Masood is in Pakistan, like he claims, then he should come to Peshawar and have a breakfast with us, then we'll see. So I think he's not here. We all know where is he. So Afghan Taliban should look inward towards themselves, so they can sort this issue out for Pakistan.
But I don't think the way things are going that they want to sort this thing out, and they don't want to have any solution whatsoever. They are going whichever strategy they have, or backing off other powers that want Pakistan to continue to destabilize.
We talked about it last time as well, that there are other hostile agencies.
And that is what they want. That is what they want, and we understand this with every passing day. Thank you very much, Salman, to have joined us. Salman Javed, Afghan affairs expert, joining us for this first very, very important segment on TTP and, of course, Pakistan, and how TTP and other organizations emanating from the Afghan soil have been destabilizing Pakistan. Let's come to our next story, and that concerns day 215 of the Israel-Palestine conflict. And, of course, a lot of it has been happening, whether it be the peace talks or the talks for a truce or a ceasefire that are still ongoing, but has a lot of skepticism. and of course whether it be what is happening in Rafah that is creating a lot of concern across the world. We've been joined by Waqar Rizvi, senior geopolitical analyst. Waqar, thank you very much to have joined us. It had been a long time coming, seeing you after a long hiatus. Hope you and everybody around you is fine. Let's begin straight away. Israel continues to bomb Rafah, rest of the Gaza Strip, as the Palestinians remain trapped following the seizure of the vital Rafah crossing or the border with Egypt. Majority of residential homes and farmland in Rafah have been cleared. Central part of Rafah city has been cleared by Israelis, including the vicinity of Al-Najjar Hospital, which is the only facility left in Rafah. And they say that Israel has, of course, has now operational control of the Rafah crossing. What do you foresee now happening? Do you see the Rafah assault finally taking place? Because we see a lot of comments, a lot of pressure tactics that are being also happening from different countries and from the US as well, as far as this ground invasion is concerned. But will it happen? Is this going to further destroy whatever is left of Palestine, in your point of view? And do you also feel that this is going to create a mistrust between both the US and Israel?
Firstly, good to be on to speak to you, Omar. It's been a very long time indeed. I hope you and your family are well also. Coming to Rafah and what's happening in Gaza, I think that when we're talking about what is happening in Rafah, I think the rest of the world, as well as the United States, even those who are allied with Israel, they're concerned about what Rafah represents, right? And this may represent the final nail in the coffin for Gaza in some ways, where the Israelis have always said they wanted to clear Gaza. This is, of course, according to many right-wing Israeli politicians within Netanyahu's government. So if Rafah does go ahead, as I presume it really will, because at this point in time, there is no reason that it should not go ahead. When we're talking about what the U.S. may or may not do, we know William Burns is in Israel right now discussing this very topic with the Israeli officials. But what impetus and what real motivation do the Israelis have to stop this? They don't. Netanyahu, as I know we probably will discuss later on, is a man under great political pressure, both from those very right-wing politicians, which I've already mentioned, as well as the fact that he's not actually a very popular politician, even within Israeli politics, due to the many corruption cases against him, as well as his wife. So at this point, as we always know, there is no better way to find political leverage than actually waging war. And so Netanyahu's been waging this war for more than just international reasons or the reasons that he has outlined, such as October 7th, but more so for domestic politics.
Also, Waqar, senior UN officials warn, and this is something that has been coming for quite some time, of the dire consequences of the closing of the Rafah crossing for the aid to be supplied, because Rafah is not the only crossing that has been closed. There are two crossings that have been closed by Israel. Now, the closing of these crossings means that less and less aid is going to come in, and there is a huge question mark on what is going to be the future as far as the food, water and health supplies to the people who are in different parts of Palestine is concerned, whether it be Rafah, whether it be Gaza, because of course the people are now moving from Rafah and now going towards Gaza. Gaza, that has already most of it been destroyed by Israel. What's your comment on this? Do you feel somehow there could be some leeway as far as the aid reaching the people in Palestine is concerned, despite the crossings being closed?
Well, UNRWA says no aid is getting in right now. That's one of the most latest updates that at least I've read. So if UNRWA is saying no aid is getting in, they're quite likely correct in that regard, considering they're the ones who have been dealing with aid on the ground for so many years in Gaza. So considering no aid is currently getting in, yes, the Israelis may very well use that as leverage. But on the other side, the narrative from the Israeli side has always been that aid is getting in, and in fact, they claim that so much aid is getting in that there's just too much aid to go around, which obviously, as all of us, even objectively viewing the situation in Gaza, know that is completely not true. So at this point, if no aid is getting in, regardless of the fact if people move towards northern Gaza now instead of southern Gaza where Rafah is, it doesn't really matter. They're not going to get the aid. That may very well be one of the tactics here anyways, to force people out further into Egypt or into other countries. And that may very well be, as I said, the plan. to get people out of the way, so to speak.
Will Israel be able to be, will the external powers that be, whether it be the US, whether it be Jordan, Qatar, or other important countries in the region, or even other Western allies, be able to stop Israel from conducting this ground invasion of Rafah? What's your take on that?
I think it would take a Herculean effort on the part of Israeli allies as well as other countries around the world to be able to stop this. I'm not saying it's not possible. It certainly is, because it's very hard to read what is happening certainly behind the scenes. We can get a glimmer that, yes, the Israelis have been under great diplomatic pressure, both from their own allies as well as obviously from adversarial countries. So in the US, we know that this has huge ramifications for US politics itself. So beyond just the campus protests, which we're seeing across the US as well as other Western countries, we also have the very real fact that this is an election year. And Biden is not a very popular president, hasn't been a very popular president for quite a long time. And he has very much lost the Arab/Muslim voting base in that country because of the way he has acted throughout the Israeli attacks on Gaza. So he certainly is viewing his own political career and his own political leverage and political influence and even political chances, really, of winning the 2024 elections diminishing very quickly. Other Israeli allies are certainly viewing things the same way as well, because there are significant Arab/Muslim populations in many parts of the Western world, and they have voting power. So for all of the above, there is this worry about what does this then mean, considering they claim to be democracies. What does this then mean for their own political careers as far as those governments that are in standing? So yes, there is pressure on it, but I do not think at this point in time that anyone can actually stop the ground invasion unless William Burns is able to come up with something face-to-face with the Israelis, unless the Qataris and others are able to sort of manhandle things behind the scenes and force the Israelis' hand. But I would still caution that even if a ceasefire is signed, as we know, currently the ceasefire that is on the table is a three-step ceasefire. The first step is just a temporary ceasefire. So one can only imagine that in a temporary ceasefire, the Israelis can do a lot, get away with a lot even, as they have in the past as well, in previous ceasefires also. So I would really caution that even if a ceasefire is signed, that would have to be proceeded with a lot of caution, and one would have to be very careful to presume that this then means the end of the road.
All right. You talked about the meeting of William Burns and Netanyahu. It's going on as we speak. And then the Israeli War Cabinet is to meet around 1630 GMT, which will be in a few hours' time. What could we, foresee from that? Any lull as far as its aggressive action is Israel's aggressive action is concerned? Secondly, I'd like your point of view on the Joe Biden administration, that are rumors that have not been confirmed neither by Israel nor by the US about pausing a shipment of weapons to Israel last week. Do you feel this is going to have some kind of impact? Is there a shift in the US strategy towards Israel, or is this just business as usual, but just to save face, steps like these are being taken?
So firstly, on the War Cabinet, I don't think anything is really going to change, to be very honest. I think that the rhetoric has to remain the same, at least public-facing rhetoric, because Netanyahu, as I said, is somebody under great pressure. And as you've already mentioned, he's under great pressure as well. So I do not think that he's going to want to anger any of the other politicians within his coalition government. We have to remember that he is part of a coalition government. He has no choice but to try to carry everybody with him, even those parties he may not always agree with. That's the first point. Secondly, on the Joe Biden administration and what they will or will not do vis-a-vis pausing arms or ammunition to Israel, it's very hard to say at this point, because you have to remember that we've just had bills pass in the US Congress supporting Israel. We have congressmen who are squarely on the Israeli side. So even if, for example, we say that the Joe Biden administration by itself decides to pause arms in some way, Congress will figure out a way to get those arms to Israel nevertheless, because Congress also has certain powers in its hands. At this point in time, I do not think that the US president has the political courage, really, if I'm honest, to take such a drastic decision. Nevertheless, when an Israeli official was asked about this very issue, about this pause, and reports about this pause that have come out in many mainstream media, he declined to comment on it, which could very well mean that that yes, there is something going on behind the scenes, that there is at the very least some displeasure which has been registered towards the Israeli side by Washington. That in and of itself may be a very significant step, because for somebody like Joe Biden, who has said that he himself is a Zionist, for him to then put this sort of pressure on Israel would be a hugely significant step.
Now, you talked of the U.S. internal politics. Let's put the protest demonstrations that have been going on in the U.S. and also in Canada as we speak, in Australia and the United Kingdom, where even in the United Kingdom there are students in at the Oxford who are urging the administration to recognize what is going on in Palestine as a genocide. We have seen all the biggest universities in the United States of America where the protests have been going on. In France, in the two major universities, the protests are going on. In Canada, the protests are going on. Is this movement going to be a game changer as far as politics of the West is concerned vis-a-vis Israel?
I think that's what the Israelis are afraid of, yes. We always remember that in the history of the United States, when it came to the Vietnam War, when it came to many other such unpopular wars that the U.S. has waged, college students and university campuses have been the very nucleus of such protests and such anti-war movements. So the Israelis are very afraid. Many pro-Israeli activists are very afraid of what this then means, even symbolically. To many Americans who are viewing this and wondering, hey, maybe the students are right this time. Why are they putting themselves in danger? Why are they sleeping in tents outside, sometimes in cold weather, or in unsavory weather at the very least, or putting themselves in danger from those who are pro-Israeli activists, who are physically, in fact, even attacking them. We have many videos out there of pro-Israeli activists attacking pro-Palestinian activists at these encampments. So I think that is the very fear. Whether or not that will have any real world consequences on policy making, that's very hard to tell right now, because even in the past, even historically, during the Vietnam War or other such times when university campuses have erupted in anti-war movements, the real world effect was very minimal at that very time. Nevertheless, the way now we view those protests and those people and those politicians who did not act at that time, obviously we do not view them through a very savory lens at this point in time. So that is something that certainly I think a lot of people are also worried about what this then means for their legacies going forward.
Let's talk of real-world politics and legacies as well. Now, medical teams find a third mass grave inside Gaza City's Al-Shifa hospital. 49 bodies have been recovered so far. We all remember the previous mass graves that have also been found, and there are still, reports of thousands of people who are still buried under the rubble who will be found, in the coming months, whenever this conflict or this war ends and reconstruction efforts begin. Do you feel that in this real politic, the role of the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court could play a certain role as far as, if not highlighting these atrocities, at least putting those powers to shame is concerned?
I mean, we've already known, right, that Netanyahu and the Israeli officials have said that they reject the ICC's jurisdiction. Israel is not a signatory to the ICC statute. Nevertheless, yes, as you said, they very well. And they've already really brought shame to the Israelis internationally as far as international law goes. Of course, there are those who do side with the Israelis when it comes to international law, and they argue their side, saying that Israel, because it is not a signatory, does not have to then abide by the ICC statutes and regulations. Nevertheless, of course, the ICC has a brand, has a reputation in the world. It is the only international court, so to speak, with the kind of standing that it does have. And the Israelis are obviously very conscious of their image. Even though at certain levels we can admit that they really do not care about what their image is at this point, they're essentially doing as they so wish. So this then becomes a battle within Israeli politics about which side wins. Does the side that actually cares about Israeli legacy, Israeli politicians, Israeli image, I should say instead, win out? Or does the side that says, listen, who cares about what the world thinks about us? We'll do as we want, because we have the kind of diplomatic cover at the United Nations. I'm speaking on behalf of the Israelis at this moment. We have that diplomatic cover at the United Nations, which the United States and other of our allies give us. or even at the courts. So we've had even American lawyers arguing at the ICC and other such places that they do not have the jurisdiction. We've had the State Department arguing that. We've had British officials arguing that. We've had many other European officials arguing as well that the ICC does not have jurisdiction. So with that kind of then diplomatic/legal cover, who is ready to hold Israel to account? And why then should it rein in its actions?
But Waqar, do you feel Israel is being isolated? We see countries like Turkey, snapping ties with Israel. That has been a good friend of Israel in the past as well. Other countries also, not only snapping ties, but there are countries that are now, accepting Palestine as a state. We are hearing of many countries, small countries, but small, there's always small steps towards the finale. Do you feel, I'm just asking you, do you feel that this steps like these are isolating Israel, or do you feel the Western allies that Israel has currently on its side are enough for it?
No, you're completely right. Those are very significant steps. So, for example, Colombia cutting off diplomatic ties with Israel was an extremely sensitive as well as very important step. Turkey cutting off those trade relations with Israel was a very, very important step, considering that trade was, I believe, around $9 billion, if I'm not mistaken, or more. So these are very significant steps, yes, and they definitely do isolate Israel. But the current government that we have in Israel and the way it's been acting when it comes to this very round of invasions on Gaza, the way it's been acting essentially goes to show the world that they really genuinely do not care about the kind of isolation that they may be suffering. Now, that does not mean that the Israeli allies do not care, and or even pro-Israel activists in places in the Western world do not care. They see the writing on the wall. They see what this means then going forward for Israel, where even then post-war scenarios, what does that then mean at places like the ICC? Or what does that then mean at even the United Nations? Will Israel have any legitimacy, if it has any even left, through historical just legacy of Israel and the way it's acted at the United Nations and others? What does this then mean? So all of the above, apart from, it seems, Israeli politicians who are currently in the cabinet, care about this. And so I think that, yes, there is this battle going on right now within Israeli politics, as well as within the Israeli allies, between the Israeli allies, I should say, and the Israeli government, deciding which side will win out in this regard.
All right. Now, to add to the misery of the Palestinian people are two reports. The first by the United Nations saying that Gaza's post-war reconstruction would require an international effort unseen since the end of the Second World War, estimating it would cost up to $40 billion US. Then the UN Mine Action Service says that 37 million tons of debris have littered the streets of Gaza, which includes up to 10,000 unexploded ammunition, which means it could at any time explode, under certain circumstances. Does the world ever realize the after effects of this war?
I don't think the world really would care, I'll be very honest. I think that's just the brutal reality of war. Unexploded ordnances have been an issue even in places like Iraq, in Afghanistan even, where you've had people maimed because of these mines that have been put in place. Even during the Iran-Iraq war, mines were used. They're still affecting people till today. We even still till today have unexploded ordnances in places like Vietnam and other places the US and other such Western countries have invaded in the past, or decades ago even. So I think that once a ceasefire is signed and once the world turns away and once our news bulletins turn away, because you and I both know, Omar, that once the news bulletins turn away, the world starts ignoring the realities on the ground in such places. And I believe that that is unfortunately what will happen. As far as what the reconstruction efforts and what may or may not happen after the fact, it's very hard to tell right now what Gaza will look like in a post-war scenario. We already have Israeli officials. We, in fact, even have Israeli real estate companies that are discussing making Gaza into essentially a huge resort area because they really want that Gaza coast. Because Gaza is a beautiful, in fact, area. It's right on the shore, and it's a beautiful land to be living on. It has beautiful views. And so for many Israeli real estate companies, this is prime territory. And so for many of them, it seems like they're acting like there will be no Palestinians living on that land. Now, whether that is the reality or not after the fact, we do not simply know at this point, because things could become a lot worse and or the Israelis could be reined in. As far as reconstruction money goes, we've had so many wars on Gaza taking place, and we've had so many times that this the sliver of territory has been reconstructed in the billions of dollars by the Qataris, by the Turks, by many others from around the world, by even the Americans and the Europeans have built schools. Yet those schools are not safe. Even an EU school is not safe from Israeli bombardment. So who's to say that tomorrow, if the $40 billion, for example, that we're discussing, let's just say that that is all spent and that Gaza is rebuilt, was it then to say that just a few days after that, the Israelis will not continue or start once again bombarding the territory? There's no guarantees about that. And I think that that's really where we need to focus our efforts instead of, reconstruction efforts, because all of that sounds very nice on paper. But the reality is that until we do not have a proper political settlement, this will keep recurring.
That is so true, and what a sad reality, in fact, of where the world is going. Thank you very much, Waqar, Rizvi, senior geopolitical analyst, joining us and, of course, discussing this very issue that has plagued or is plaguing the world as we speak. And until and unless this does not stop, the humanity or the world at large will not be able to move forward. Thank you very much to have joined us, Waqar. Let's come to our last two stories very, very quickly. The first is about Vladimir Putin, who has begun his new 6-year term. Of course, that is a challenge to the West. He says he wants to continue his relations with the West, but we all know that there were a lot of Western countries that were not present at his swearing-in ceremony. At 71 years of age, he dominates the domestic political landscape as far as Russia is concerned. On the international stage, we all know he's locked in a confrontation with the Western countries that he accuses of using Ukraine as a vehicle to try to defeat and dismember Russia. Putin has also told Russia's political elite after being sworn in that he was not reelecting dialogue with the West, including on nuclear weapons. So, of course, we will be seeing more talks, but where and how these talks will happen is another question altogether. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, the world has seen its hottest month of April on record, extending an 11th month streak in which every month in the past few months has been the hottest month on a record as far as the world is concerned. We all know the reasons behind it, whether it be climate change, whether it be carbon emissions, and more needs to be done as far as whether it be COPs or whether it be all the pledges that have been made by the countries to reduce carbon emissions is concerned on a war footing before things go out of hand, before the temperature rises beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we also need to end these wars before these wars also not only the impact that they are creating on people, on the geopolitics, on geostrategy, but also on the climate. Think about it and move forward. Be cognizant of what the world is going towards. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.